Hi, welcome back to my story time with Nana. I have a whole new story for you this week, whole new grandma tale. I'm very excited. Let's begin. Grandma Tales. Mrs. Thompson. Penelope was going to work with Mommy again. It had been a couple of weeks since she had been to the Gray Manor. She couldn't wait to hear another story. She grabbed her bouquet of paper flowers and met her mother downstairs. Good morning, Mommy said. I made oatmeal, your favorite, with cinnamon and raisins. Oh, thank you, Mommy. Penelope sat at the table. I do love when you make me oatmeal. What time are we leaving? Soon. Are you excited to come to work with me? I am, she answered. I also can't wait to see if I can buy another story with my flowers. I'm sure you will, Mommy told her. We got a new resident last week, and she's still trying to get used to being there. I'll bet she would like the distraction. Maybe she has a story for you. What's her name? Her name is Mrs. Thompson. I'll introduce you when we get there, Mommy said. Now finish up so we can get going. Mommy and Penelope were soon on their way to the Gray Manor. Penelope couldn't wait to meet Mrs. Thompson. I wonder what kind of story she'll tell me, she thought. Mrs. Thompson was in her room sitting in a chair beside the window. She didn't see Penelope and her mother when they came in the room. Mommy walked over and placed her hand gently on her shoulder. Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. Oh my, you startled me, she said with a little jump. I'm sorry, I just wanted you to meet my daughter Penelope. Hello, Penelope, she said. What's that you have in your hand? Paper flowers. Well, I'll be back in a little while, Mommy said, leaving the room. Behave, Penelope. Oh, I will, she said. Would you like to buy a flower? Well, they are beautiful. Did you make them yourself? I did. How much for a flower? Mrs. Thompson asked. Just a story, Penelope answered. I sell my flowers for stories. Do you have a story about when you were a little girl? I do, she answered. Have a seat on my bed. Penelope sat on the edge of the bed facing Mrs. Thompson. Well, when I was a little girl, about your age, we lived in a small village in Scotland. I know, I was born in Scotland. Didn't come to America until I was a young woman. My daddy worked at the foundry. My mother stayed at home to care for us. We didn't have a lot of money, and sometimes my mother brought in ironing from other families to make money. There were 6 of us children, so she was pretty busy. I had a younger sister, Ina. Well, her real name was Christina, but we liked to call her Ina. She was 2 years younger than me, and oh, how I loved her. Ina's gone now, but whenever I get to missing her, I think about this story. It was summertime. My mother had saved money from her ironing, not a lot, but enough to buy us each a doll. Back then, little girls loved their dolls, and Ina and I were no exception. Most girls had porcelain dolls, but Mother couldn't afford those. But I'll never forget that day. Mother came home with 2 flowered boxes, and in each box was a beautiful baby doll wearing a pink nightgown. Each doll came with a baby blanket and a day dress. Ina's was a yellow dress with little pink flowers, and mine was a pink dress with little yellow flowers. They were beautiful. Before we could take them out of the boxes, Mother explained that the dolls were not porcelain and we would need to take special care of them. The dolls were made of wax. You'll both need to be careful with your dolls, she told us. You cannot just leave them near the fireplace, and you need to be careful when it's very warm outside. Just like a candle, which is made from wax, your baby dolls can melt. Ina and I were very careful with our dolls. Every day we took them for walks, we had tea time in the afternoons, and we turned their beautiful boxes into baby cribs for bedtime. One sunny afternoon, we took our dolls outside for their daily walk. Poor Ina fell and scraped her knees terribly. She was crying and crying and begging me to go get help because it just hurt too much for her to walk. I ran all the way home to get Mother, but she wasn't home. She was dropping off some ironing she had done that day. My eldest brother was home from work, and I told him what had happened to Ina. He told me to stay put and get some clean cloths and warm water ready for when he went to get her. I waited anxiously for them to get back. Robert was carrying her, and Ina was still crying. Mother arrived soon after, and Robert laid her on the sofa, and she tended to Ina's knees. Poor Ina. Her knees were raw from falling, and her eyes were red from crying. Mother cleaned her up and changed her into her nightdress and put her to bed. And later that night, as I lay in bed, I had a feeling that something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something was wrong besides the fact that my poor sister had cried herself to sleep. The next morning, Ina and I went down for breakfast. Her knees still hurt, but she was feeling much better. Mother had made oatmeal for us that morning. It was our favorite. Oh, I see that you like oatmeal too. She told us it was going to be another sunny day, just like yesterday, and we should try to spend as much time outside. And that's when it hit me. It was a very sunny day yesterday when we took our babies for a walk, when Ina had fallen, when Robert had carried her home, when Mother had cleaned her up, when Ina had cried herself to sleep. Ina didn't have her baby doll. She had forgotten her after she fell. Oh, I looked at Ina to see if she realized, but she didn't. She smiled and agreed with Mother that we should spend the day outside. After breakfast, we went upstairs to change, and that's when she realized her baby wasn't in her crib. Oh, she asked me where I had put her baby, and I told her I hadn't put her baby anywhere, that she must have forgotten her when she fell. Oh, poor Ina, she just cried and cried. I told her we would go and find her baby. We changed quickly and left the house, retracing our steps. When we came to the spot where Ina had fallen, we found her baby doll. Oh, it was terrible, terrible. Her baby's face had melted in the hot sun from the day before. Oh, I felt terrible. I should have remembered her doll. I was the oldest. It just broke my heart to see Ina cry so. Not only had she ruined her doll, she was worried Mother would be angry at her for not taking better care of the doll that Mother had saved her ironing money for. I tried to console her, but Ina just cried over her poor melted baby doll. We walked back home, Ina carrying her ruined baby. She was still crying, the poor thing. We took the doll to her bedroom, and Ina laid her in the crib. I tried everything I could to cheer her up throughout the day, but nothing helped. We didn't tell Mother because Ina was ashamed for being so careless, and I felt horrible that I hadn't remembered Ina's doll after she fell. So that night after Ina fell asleep, I took her doll and removed her yellow dress and put the dress on my perfect doll and laid her in Ina's crib. I hid her melted doll under my bed and hid my baby's pink dress in my sock drawer. And I climbed into bed with Ina and fell asleep holding her tight. The next morning I woke to squeals of excitement. Ina was jumping up and down holding the baby. She was so happy. She told me that she must have had a nightmare because she thought she had ruined her doll, and yet here she was, perfect. I can remember the look on her face like it was yesterday. She was looking at her baby with such love. I was so happy. It wasn't long, though, before she realized the truth. At first, she insisted that I take the doll back, but of course I refused. I explained that as her older sister, I should have remembered the doll, and so since it was my fault, she should have the good doll. Instead, Ina came up with a plan. We would share the doll. And when I played with her, we changed her into the pink dress. And when she played with the doll, we changed her into the yellow dress. Mother never asked about the dolls, and we never said anything. But I think she knew. Sometimes she would smile watching each of us play with our doll. We shared that baby for years. Well, there she is over there, Mrs. Thompson said, pointing to the corner of her room. Oh, can I hold her? Penelope asked. Sure, just be very careful, Mrs. Thompson told her. She's over 80 years old. Penelope carefully lifted the doll from the crib. Oh my, she's so beautiful, rocking her gently and then laying her back into the crib. Thank you for the wonderful story, Mrs. Thompson. What color flower would you like? I think I'll choose a yellow flower, she said. It was my sister's favorite color, and every time I look at that flower, it will remind me of her. Thank you. Penelope handed Mrs. Thompson the yellow flower and thanked her again for the story. I have to go find my mommy now. Have a great day and welcome to Gray Manor. I think you're going to love it here. Penelope found her mother in the game room. She was setting up different games on all the round tables. Mommy, I just heard the nicest story from Mrs. Thompson. Oh, did you? Mommy asked. I did. What do you think about getting me a special baby doll for my birthday next year? Penelope asked. I didn't think that you liked baby dolls. Well, Mrs. Thompson's story made me think that I probably would like to have a doll. And I can name her Ina. Well, I'll talk to your father, Mommy said. Help me finish setting up, and then perhaps we can go do a little window shopping. What's window shopping? That's when you go looking for something. You're not really sure exactly what you want, Mommy explained. But then we can let Daddy know that you have an idea for your birthday. Oh, Mommy, Penelope said, giving her a big hug. Thank you. The end. I hope you enjoyed tonight's story. Don't forget to share my stories and come back next week for a whole new story and Penelope and her flowers. Thanks. Mwah.